All right, everybody, we are live. Thank you, listeners, for checking out another edition of Alumless, our web series and podcast. It's great to have you back with us. If you're tuning in, you are probably interested in engagement strategies and educational advancement. That's what Chris and I do. Chris Marshall, the man sharing the screen with me, let me pull down our marker here. There he is. You got to actually pull down the little promo slide and introduce Chris. Hey, Chris, what's going on?
Hey, Ryan, how are you? Good to see you.
Happy Friday. We are back in the saddle with a great edition of the podcast. As our listeners know, Alumless is a CMAC production. You, sir, are the leader of CMAC, but we do have some other consultants on our team. We ought to bring some of them on the show from time to time, but we've got a growing team at CMAC, and we love talking about these topics. We're broadcasting live Friday, April 28th, 2023. Thanks to all of our listeners that are tuning in and making this web series part of your week. We've got a great show today featuring Adam Compton. He's the Executive Director of Annual Giving at NC State University. As always, if you have any questions for myself or for Chris, or even better, for our special guest, Adam Compton, go ahead and use the comments section of the LinkedIn event so that we can see your comments. And of course, we'd love it if you just introduce yourself, let us know that you're listening, and have some fun with us here on the show. All right, so Chris, it's Friday.
You see Pete's comment. He just starts it off with a Kansas City Chiefs dig in the first comment.
Oh man, what is he doing out there? Home of the NFL draft world champion Kansas City Chiefs. For the listeners who have been listening for a while, know that Chris and I are both Philadelphia fans, long-standing. So it does hurt to bring up football at this moment, but we got the draft coming up, right? Isn't that this weekend? So
yeah, they already have their first pick. They got a good one in Philly.
Oh, who was the first pick? Do you know off the top of your head? It's for a different web show.
Yeah. No, I can't help you there. That's not my expertise.
It's a different show.
Josh tuning in to keep Adam honest. I love it.
Hey, Kim, how are you? Good to see you. The draft picks. So we were in Denver together last week. That was fun. It's always a chance to get to hang out, and we did a fun project with our friends at the University of Denver. And then you were back again in Colorado twice in the same week, which I don't know. That's kind of an aggressive move, but you had some fun with the USOPA group and even hanging out with a bunch of Olympians. How did that go?
That's what I tell people. It marries the two things I love the most is elite sport, which is my previous world in athletics, and the sport of Olympic swimming has been my love and passion. And then I'm now alumni. So the Olympic Association for the United States Olympic and Paralympic teams was the project, and they had the reunion. I had a series of meetings around that event, and it was the coolest thing to be sitting in a room with 300 Olympians and their guests, and just rubbing elbows and talking about their future strategy about alumni engagement. They have 6,000 former athletes that have the opportunity to interact with each other and support current athletes. It's a very similar parallel between an alumni organization at a college or university with current students. It's the same exact parallels, and they're trying to figure out the best ways to engage that population and support Team USA, the current athletes. So it's been a lot of fun. What a great project to be on. I've been honored to do it.
Totally. What a great project to be on. And I love how the alumni engagement concepts transcend higher education. Works for alumni associations, and some of the even really similar constructs exist, like trying to help the people on the alumni board, trying to help former athletes transition into the work world after spending all these years working on their sport. And then it's kind of like a big change, kind of like college, right? Graduating, and then you're in the work world, and it's totally different. And the network is so important to have. But I'm sure that was a great project. It's less so about giving though, right, Chris, or that particular project, although it is included.
It'll probably, the circles will overlap a bit there, but not like it does in higher ed. For them, it's more about helping other athletes transition out of sport and supporting them, alumni in their own lives, but it'll touch giving a little bit.
Right. But, obviously in advancement shops, giving is sort of the name of the game in many respects. And we want to talk a bit about annual giving today. It's a big topic. I think it's an evolving topic. It probably doesn't get the kind of coverage that it deserves in terms of how it's growing and changing. But when I say annual giving, what comes to mind to you? Like, what are the sort of top of mind thoughts when you think about annual giving? Just riffing here a little bit,
Yeah, the first two words that come to my mind when I annual giving, I think of Adam Compton. So I'm glad he's our guest. But the next word that comes to my mind, unfortunately, is you hear it a lot from VPs and boards and trustees, even is rankings, is the impact of annual giving percentages on rankings. And no, not every system uses it, but the big one does. US News and World Report uses the 2-year rolling average of undergraduate annual giving as their alumni satisfaction rating. And to me, that part's frustrating. It's too much emphasis on the giving part. It's got to be others. Now we're going to talk to Adam. He'll probably like the emphasis on it, but what I'm hearing, in terms of trends in our industry on this topic, and we're gonna pick Adam's brain on this exact stuff, is that, pretty much that we're seeing dollars holding steady or going up is what I hear from a lot of clients right now. Donors staying steady or dropping slightly, but of course your alumni number is growing. So what happens is percentages are going down. So the measurement of alumni giving as a rating of an institution is a frustrating thing to try to measure. And I think it's rare air if a school can get to a point where they're growing. Although I have a few clients percentages are growing in annual giving, but it's a hard battle. It's a really hard battle where you have the guy here who can tell us all about it.
Yeah. It's one of the 4 case engagement metrics, right? Like experiential, communications, volunteer, and then there's philanthropy. And I guess in my mind, right, that's what we're talking about is that 4th stool of the
To me,
alumni
the one of
engagement.
4 is the right balance. When it's one of one, all about giving, it's out of balance. So I like that we've added experiential, volunteer, and communications. But let's bring our guy in and talk about that number 4.
Right. That sounds good. I like it. All right. So let's bring to the stream today our special guest, Adam Compton. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you, Ryan and Chris?
I hung my pennant for you, man. Wolfpack.
Saw it. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me.
We're glad to have Adam on the show. I know lots of folks out there in higher ed land know Adam. I've met Adam a couple of times now. We presented together at the Washburn McGoldrick Client Conference last year, and I attended actually the conference you put on, Adam, back in January, the ACC Annual Giving Conference. It was well attended. A great group of annual giving professionals descended upon NC State University, and you put together a really awesome couple-day conference with lots of great topics. As you were thinking about that conference now in the wake of it, what are some of your big takeaways from the conference in terms of what's on the mind of annual giving pros out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I enjoy most about those type conferences is the ability to have conversations, to hear like we're not the only ones struggling in certain areas. And so as you think about, or like, where are people seeing success? And how does that really balance between everything? And so, some of the things that the fellow kind of people at my level were talking about was staffing. How do we keep and retain staffing? How do we, it's a tough job market to hire people, but also looking at this really weird year that we were having. And so we spent some time looking at some numbers and stuff, and that when you looked at the end of last calendar year, you had, record high inflation, you had people still paying, whatever, $6 a dozen for eggs, those kind of things. Some of the things we're still seeing today. And everybody was a little bit like, yeah, we're in that boat of like, we're seeing, for us, it was donors below the $250 level eroding. And like, what does, donor retention look like for those donors comparatively? And when's that going to turn the corner? And so just starting to kind of see, okay, like, what are you trying? That's what I love about this industry, is to be able to pick up the phone or jump on a Zoom these days and have a conversation and say, well, what's working for you? What's not? What are things that you're doing? And so that was the best part about that conference, is just really trying to hear what strategies people are going to be deploying going into the rest of this fiscal year for those of us that are in a kind of June 30 or other timeline.
Yeah, lots of great topics, talking about student philanthropy challenges, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's the marketing aspect of annual giving, right? Sort of the tactical ideas. There's donor engagement concepts, I think, built in around different audience segments, and then relationship building around campus. There was really good topics, as annual giving is often a team that is really tasked with developing relationships across the university and helping colleges and schools and units with their campaigns. Great to see so many people tuning in and saying hello. Christina from NC State, your colleague. Barney up in Canada. Got Jocelyn in Miami. Pete,
You
Shana,
got a
Kim.
fan club on here, right, Adam?
These are all Adam Compton fans. Yeah, I know. There's no
The
doubt
joy
about
of this
that.
industry.
So Adam, let's talk a little bit about some of the tactical innovations that you and the team at NC State have been making in order to reach some of the significant goals you have for donors and dollars. What have you been trying? What's been working? What's had an impact?
I mean, I think, the easy thing that it's fresh on my mind is Giving Day, and we can talk more about Giving Day as a day of giving here in a second. The other is really, how do we break out of this mold, this assumption mold that I talk about a lot of, like, we assume that because you graduated from X college, you thus must want to support X college. We're moving more into a modern data infrastructure that allows us to really start to understand what your interests are and what your passions are. And so, I think one of the areas where we're going at NC State is this: we recently merged our alumni association and alumni relations team with the annual giving team to be under one strategy. And I think the long-term potential of that is to really start to meet people where they are and understand those interests. And I think that's going to be what taps into. I've always heard, working in higher ed, like, oh, if you're passionate about something, there's somewhere that you can support. But we have 7,000 funds. How do we put that in front of everybody, that we have to start being more personalized? And so we've invested in marketing automation tools that allow us to start to take people on journeys and drive them based on their last interaction to the next interaction. Some of those type of things, I think, as we think about our next CRM world, I think all that's going to continue to increase.
Yeah. And all that connects deeply with your content strategy, right? I mean, you can't assess people's interests without creating, publishing, sharing, and tracking the themes around the content that you're creating. And to understand, okay, this person is engaging with our scholarship related content, and therefore we're going to engage them around a conversation around scholarships or other themes, which I love thinking about. It's one of the fun challenges. But Chris, we often have discussions with VPs, AVPs about technology, right? And increasing the alumni participation rate. It's fair to say the how is complicated. A lot goes into it. That said, how do you summarize how engagement teams are thinking about the challenge of increasing the alumni participation rate?
Yeah, I think it starts with, and steps 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4 and 5 are all in the same category, which to me is the internal partnership between the broad-based alumni engagement strategy and the broad-based fundraising strategies that Adam oversees. And the fact that NC State moved to the model that Adam just described, I thought was brilliant in the first place. Took a lot of courage for Brian Sisko, the VP, to do it, but I think he's done the right thing. And they're still in, Adam, you can tell us more about it, Phil, but I would say they're in growing pain stage a little bit right now, early stage still, trying to figure out how it all comes together, trying to hire the counterpart to Adam on the alumni side. So they got a little ways to go here, but I think it's a place that can give it a long-term effort on this, not do it for 2 years and then change course. We got to go after this for 5-10 year window. And I think NC State's the place to do it. And I can tell you right now, out of our 20 some odd clients, Ryan, that we're working with, half of them are either in that model or thinking about moving to that model. So I know it's been a trend. It came and went, but I think we're at a point now where people are realizing the value of that broad strategy, throwing communications tracking, what people are interested in, and keeping all that data in one place in the CRM. So then we go ask people, we're asking them for things that are relevant to them and they care deeply about. That's the way to do it. And it starts, to me, with the part, think about your role at your institution. The folks that are on right now are listening to us later on. Think about, if you're on the annual giving side, think about your alumni engagement leader, and vice versa. If you're on the alumni engagement side, think about your annual giving leader. And is that somebody, in my opinion, it should be one of your, if not the closest friend you have, colleague that you have on campus. And if it's not, it's a problem. And what we find at a lot of places is that the posture of the alumni program is to lean away from the rest of advancement and not interact. And to get them to lean in, and then the two of them to really collaborate, I think that's your answer. That's step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, in my opinion, because everything else flows from there. I may be oversimplifying, Adam, but love to hear your reaction to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, if I were to add to that friend group, I would add in advancement services, because
exactly right.
There should be, a group, and even more so in this day and time, communications, that all these pieces have to work together to make this ecosystem together to where we get that
Great point.
360 view of an alum and or friend. I mean, I think we're doing work in friends, we're doing work in parents, and I think as you think about how you get more people investing and thinking about the university, it's going to be important to meet them where they are.
And there's these roles that sort of sit in the middle of the engagement side, the giving side, and they're largely digital roles, right? I see my friend Kim Infanti on the Zoom, and it's the executive director, digital engagement within an advancement shop, alumni association, are connecting the pieces together, right? The communications and engagement pieces together. We could talk about this all day, but Adam, lots of schools we would talk about annual giving days a little bit, have been a key component to increasing the number of alumni and stakeholders across campus, right? Different groups. What have you noticed about the giving habits of alumni and others, whether giving days are still a good way for alumni to make a gift? And have we seen any changes in your mind in around giving days, or they continue to get bigger and better?
Well, my friends at Purdue just locked up a $110 million day. So, I think they will tell you, and for us, we saw, our largest number of gifts ever. That results in the largest number of gifts in our 5 years of doing a giving day. For what we're seeing, the strategy that we're deploying works. We continue to see new donors coming in. We see donors reactivating. We see our donors upgrading throughout the day. But we also have a very big major gift driving component. And it's that strategy of all those pieces coming together with our comms side that make these days extremely successful and have drivers beyond just dollars and donors, that we're able to further the brand of the university. We're able to excite our campus around all the different pieces of philanthropy and bring campus together in one strategy. And so there's so many pieces. If you try to just look at a giving day as like one key component that is solely based on success, like you may achieve that, but there's so many other pieces downstream. For us, I know there's a post on LinkedIn I was reading this morning and was kind of bashing giving days, and I would argue, like, looking at our giving day, it goes against everything they said, that it does rival December. And December, if you look at the 2 points in the year, it's December and giving day is the time when our donors are really most activated. Having this ongoing conversation with them and moving that around, it's just amazing to me that continue to see that success.
The competitive side of it too, Adam. We were talking right before we got on about the Purdue success. They just had $110.8 million, and there's some competition that goes on, pride in winning those internal things and having that number, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have donors that call us out of the blue and say, I want to see my college, my department, whatever it may be, at the top of a leaderboard. Giving days unlock a different type of donor a lot of times, I will say. I think it appeals to them because they can see the power of their gift. They can see what their gift can do to drive it. And so that's where we get major gifts really to play in. And that these donors calling in and saying, look, I'll do $1 million because I want to see this college win. And that's, or at least saying, hey, Chris, we've been, Chris, I know we've been talking about this gift for a long time. Let's go ahead and do it. And that like milestone, I think, is also in that competitive spirit. We love to, I will say it's probably as much external as it is internal.
Yeah.
That it motivates our development teams. It motivates everybody to get out there and really try and work to see success of the day.
It's interesting how campaigns really motivate, it's still, whether it's long-term ones or ones. And I think, there was a post, maybe the one that you were thinking about. I saw that too. And the one thing I saw mentioned was, what about even smaller campaigns around more specific designations, right? Maybe not an annual, all full, every designation giving day, but what about just for specific areas and really kind of building out an infrastructure to have more micro campaigns? It's an interesting thought,
Yeah, I think that is where, as we think about what do we want a donor to do throughout the year, we've moved away from, I still have annual giving in my title, but I'm like, it's not really annual giving anymore because we want this year-round giving, these habits of supporting multiple areas across campus and unlocking that potential. And so where you can come up with these sprints, basically, is kind of what I refer to them as. Like, we're going to do a week-long sprint around this idea. you can start to get people engaged in multiple areas. We took our donor from our last campaign, our principal gifters, and they were all pan-institutional donors. So my thought is, like, can we create these habits while they're still in that starting phase, that they're supporting 4 or 5 areas across campus? My dream donor in the annual giving space has a recurring gift, and then we're motivating them to come back and support their passion areas throughout the year. Maybe that recurring gifts to their college's enhancement fund, and then throughout the year, something we're doing based on the data they're telling us. So they're attending DEIB focused events. Can we motivate them through a week-long sprint to come back and support a DEI project or a crowdfunding project throughout the year, and get them to really build some of those habits that we know go on to be principal gift donors and increase people's giving? Their donor retention rate goes up, all of those different things.
Yeah. We are, for the folks listening and watching, we're officially off script, which is my favorite part of any Alumless episode. I'm going to go, and Adam, just so you know, there's somebody, it doesn't say the name, but just says LinkedIn user predicted that Adam will beat the $110 million watch him. So no pressure. Brian will make sure he gets that message too.
Don't send this to Brian.
Rashenda and Brian should know that the prediction was made. But I want to ask you a question about Giving Day. Rewind just a little bit. One of the things you said that occurred to me, as you were saying, is Purdue's been doing this for 10 years, you said? And they do it on the same day every year, roughly? It's like
roughly the same, like Wednesday of April.
Yeah. Do you think that's important, that consistency of getting sort of training those donors to get to the point where they know that's coming and they're going to be competitive around that time to help prove their college or whatever the ranking is they're trying to
becomes a tradition, right?
Yeah.
It's a tradition. I think what we have to combat a little bit is, like, I think it makes us really think about some of our messaging. And if you do a spring giving day every single year, for example, I think it makes us think about our fall messaging a little bit stronger, that we have to be even more motivating in our messaging, so that, and we saw this when we punted on a giving day during COVID and said, we're going to pause and think about doing this later. All of our numbers took a hit because so many donors were waiting for giving day. And so how do we balance that and really make sure we're being compelling in our messaging and our strategies, that the fall is about getting donors in the door, so that it's really about second and third gifts, even sometimes with Day of Giving.
And I was just thinking to myself, I'm a monthly donor to my alma mater. And every year when Giving Day comes, I'm like, I already gave this month, like I don't need to do like another gift. However, if they came at me for something that I care about, a specific sprint for a specific designation, I'm like, okay, that feels like it would be an easier thing for me to do personally. I don't know, but an interesting thought process.
Calling out the University of Richmond Annual Giving Office, please send Ryan a solicitation about.
Yeah, that's what I need. You're right. But only about something I care about, right? Just so you know, got to be relevant. All right, Adam, I wanted to ask you about, we've had a lot of conversation about AI now in our space, and good a number of posts out there, advancement leaders, consultants sort of wrapping their heads around the implications of Chat GPT and future AI. As an annual giving person, I think a lot of the impact will be in this area when it comes to writing responses and stewardship and content and the communications that we're using. How are you thinking about it? How has it sort of crossed your mind? And maybe was it part of the conference discussion? I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
I mean, I think AI in general is going to become a larger part of our business going forward. I think, Chat GTP is fun right now. Sometimes, one of my favorite stories is one of my new members of my team. We asked him to work on an appeal for one of our programs, and he went to Chat GTP, plugged in a few things into it, and it spit out like a good starting point for him to think about where and what things. One of my other colleagues, put in what does it take to have a successful day of giving, and it was surprisingly accurate, some of the things that it was able to pull in. And so while I think there's these like fun stories right now, I think there are real opportunities as we think about our infrastructure investment, as we think about how we get more personalized, how we get more predictive. If we can get to that system where we are really starting to capture the 360 view of our alum and letting AI start to predict what Ryan might be passionate about, we can start to tease other things in front of him. And so it's putting engagement opportunities in front of him and letting him raise his hand so that Richmond can know, oh, this is what he's interested in. What my long-term vision in some ways is to move away from, these mass marketing appeals where we're sending out, a piece of mail to 50,000 people and letting the data points kind of drive this ongoing conversation with people where you're taking people down a journey. And I think AI is going to play a big role in that, because in order to do it right now,
scale it,
it's so labor intensive. And, and even our marketing automation platform, as we're investing in it, it's very staff heavy. It's very, it takes a lot of people, a lot of time to map out, a 50-step journey even, because once you start breaking things out, you're building, a bunch of emails. And so I think there's some opportunities. I joked, I'll say this so we can, I joked with my brother. My brother worked in the political world for a while and did a lot of email. He always joked with his developers that like one day he's going to be replaced by, some sort of automated, writing from a system. And I don't know if we'll fully get to that point, but I do think there's opportunities to really think about how we can build those follow-up communications and let AI help predict those next steps.
I'd rather have an AC than AI. Adam Compton.
There you go.
I thought you were saying the air conditioner than AI, and it's like, I don't know, Chris. That's kind of.
I meant Adam.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's as we wrap up this episode, maybe a broader question, Chris, over to you about the essential elements of any annual giving program. As you sort of think out there, like what comes to mind, even just sort of.
I think we hit on all of them. I'll summarize them. I wrote down a few points, and we literally hit about all 6 of these. So the partnership piece, the annual giving, alumni engagement with all the other pieces, IT, communications, all those other key partnerships. You need a CRM system that does what you need to track all the things we need that we're doing, that I'm describing. One we didn't talk about is I do think that our major gift, principal gift officers need to play a role in asking their prospects for high-level leadership annual gifts every year. And that's hard for some major gift officers to do so. Segmented, targeted communications, making it easy, making it personal. We just talked about that literally, and getting them to give to what matters to them is, I think, the key that we're trying to find for all of this work. So we've hit on all the ones for me that I look for when I first make an assessment of a program.
That was a good recap. Adam, would you add anything to Chris's list that we hadn't hit?
No, I think I think leadership buy-in. I can't talk enough about it. And looking at the long-term picture, and I think is also an incredible, important part of that.
And you have that from your Roshunda, your supervisor, from Brian, your vice chancellor, but all the way up. I've seen your chancellor playing the guitar on the thank you videos. It's that kind of thing.
I also wonder about the philosophy of, I feel like some schools are really ask heavy. Hey, give this gift, sign up for this event, give us your time, give us. And you need to sort of counterbalance that with providing value through the content that you're sharing, right? Not always trying to convert for a gift, but have an ongoing dialogue with alumni and what that balance looks like in terms of the way that you're sending out communications. But we're going to power on to our second half of Alumless with Adam Compton. We're going to talk more about annual giving. We're going to get into some more of the topics around annual giving. Regular giving, maybe not annual giving. We've already decided that maybe annual is not exactly the right word, even though everybody sort of knows the word annual and identifies the work when we use that word. But Chris, all right, who are we going to be featuring as our special guest in 2 weeks?
Our next guest is none other than the University of Buffalo's Thomas MacArthur, our client and friend and colleague who oversees both the annual giving and alumni engagement program at the University of Buffalo. Yeah. So we're going to still come up with the right topics, but he oversees a combined shop, and it's going to be interesting to hear from him following what we just talked about with Adam. So
Buffalo is his alma mater, and a lot of interesting, unique challenges with there. We've been doing some strategic planning work with Thomas.
The other piece that I think we should talk about with him is, and we've had this come out, is the complexities of a large public university. Yeah. You live it every day, Adam, at NC State, but he's leading this shop. It'd be really interesting. He's got a situation where they have, and like you do at NC State, Adam, they have alumni officers in some, if not all, the colleges that were all doing their own thing. And here's the central program he oversees doing his thing. And he's trying to
Yeah.
streamline all that. So that'll be part of our conversation.
Yeah, and all those decentralized alumni people have alumni associations, right?
Yep.
That are
Yeah, that's right. That's
separate.
right. We talked about, yeah.
Like add another challenging aspect. But we'll talk with Thomas next week about that and more. But yeah, 30 minutes went by super fast. Thank you everyone for listening, for tuning in, and we'll be back again in 2 weeks. See you on the podcast edition, and it's great to have you. Have a good
I
weekend.
noticed Adam, you and our shirts were similar. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
I call Chris every morning because I want to be like him one day. So and ask him what he's wearing. So.
Yeah, both very closely aligned blue, pinkish plaid shirts
More
going
purple.
on. Very Friday feel. It's good. All right, everybody. We'll see you later. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.